There's a moment most of us have had, maybe late at night, maybe in the middle of a perfectly ordinary Tuesday, when something quiet rises up inside you. Not sadness exactly, not happiness either, just this strange, restless feeling that something is slightly off. Like you're standing in a room that's missing a piece of furniture you can't quite name. You look around, everything seems fine, but the feeling stays. Have you ever noticed that? That sense that life is almost right, that you're almost where you need to be, almost at peace, and the almost follows you everywhere, through the good days and the busy ones, through the moments that should feel complete but somehow don't. What if that feeling isn't a sign that something is wrong with you? What if it's a sign that you've been looking in exactly the wrong direction? There's an old story about a young traveler walking along a country road as the afternoon light turned gold. He'd been walking for hours, and his head was full of plans. Where he would go next, who he would study with, what he would learn. A farmer in a slow cart offered him a ride, and as they rode together through the warm evening air, the young man started talking. He talked about the teacher in the east he wanted to learn from, the monastery in the mountains where monks practiced silence for months, the woman in the coastal village who knew the old songs. He talked about herbs and healing, about painting, about walking meditations, about a valley in the far north where people supposedly lived to be very old. Each wish was genuine. Each one came from a real and tender part of him. The farmer listened without interrupting. He held the reins loosely in his weathered hands and let the horse walk at its own pace. When the young man finally ran out of words, the farmer turned and looked at him with soft eyes and said simply, "You carry a great many wishes, don't you?" It wasn't a criticism. It wasn't even really a question. But something about it landed in the traveler's chest in a way he hadn't expected. For the first time, he felt the weight of all that wanting. Not the joy of it, which was real, but the sheer volume of it. The belief underneath it all that he couldn't be at peace until he had experienced everything on his list. And in that silence, as the wheels turned slowly over the dirt road, he looked up and noticed something he hadn't seen before. The sky was enormous. The hills were soft and green. The air smelled of grass and coming rain. And this moment, on this ordinary cart, on this unremarkable road, was already full. Already alive, already something. A small, almost invisible loosening happened inside him. Like a fist that had been clenched for so long it had forgotten it was clenching. And slowly, very slowly, it began to open. Most of us live some version of this story. We move through our days with a quiet running list in the back of our minds. Things to accomplish, problems to resolve, versions of ourselves to become. And underneath that list is a belief we rarely examine directly. That peace is waiting on the other side of it. That we'll finally be able to rest when the list is finished. But the list never finishes. You know this. You've watched it happen. You cross one thing off and another appears. The finish line moves. Not because you're failing, but because that's what finish lines do when we let them run our lives. There's a Japanese Zen phrase that doesn't translate cleanly into English, but the feeling of it does. It points to the mind that has stopped trying to get somewhere. The mind that is, just for a moment, completely here. Not because everything is perfect. Not because all the problems are solved. But because it has stopped insisting that right now is not enough. A good way to feel the difference is to think about the last time you were fully in a moment. Maybe it was outside somewhere, watching the sky. Maybe it was in a conversation where something real was being said. Maybe it was just a few seconds while you were washing your hands, and for no particular reason, everything went quiet inside. In those moments, you weren't trying to be present. You just were. And it felt, even briefly, like nothing was missing. That's not a coincidence. That's not luck. That's what happens when the grasping stops, even for a breath. There's a story about a potter who made the most beautiful bowl of her life. The shape was perfect. The glaze shifted from blue to green depending on how the light hit it. She placed it on the highest shelf in her workshop and looked at it every day with quiet pride. And then one afternoon it fell and broke. She gathered the pieces carefully and placed them in a cloth. And every day she looked at the broken pieces where the whole bowl used to be. Weeks passed. She sat at her wheel but couldn't bring herself to begin again. What was the point? She thought, when beautiful things could be lost so easily. Then one morning a child wandered into the workshop. The child looked at the cloth bundle on the shelf and asked what was in it. The potter said, "The pieces of something beautiful." The child climbed up on a stool, turned one of the broken pieces over in small curious hands, and then looked at the potter's wheel and the soft waiting clay beside it and asked, without any weight to the question at all, "Why don't you make a new one?" The potter opened her mouth to explain, but the child had already picked up a lump of clay and was squeezing it between their fingers, giggling at the softness of it. And watching that, something loosened in the potter. The child wasn't mourning. The child wasn't planning. The child was just here with the clay, with the simple pleasure of touching something alive and willing. And the potter realized, quietly and without fanfare, that she had been spending her days staring at something broken when the living clay had been right there in front of her the whole time. The past had already happened. The bowl had already fallen. But the present was still offering itself, patient and soft, the way it always does. There's a teaching that's been passed quietly from person to person for a long time. A Zen teacher said it to a student, and that student carried it for years before passing it on, the way you carry a smooth stone in your pocket and touch it sometimes to remember something important. The words are simple, almost too simple. Just to be alive is enough. Not that life must be perfect. Not that everything must be resolved. Not that you must have figured it all out before you're allowed to feel at rest. Just that this breath, this moment, exactly as it is already something. Already whole in a way we usually rush right past. The teaching doesn't ask you to stop wanting things. The traveler on the cart wasn't foolish for wanting to learn and grow. That's a beautiful part of being alive. But there's a difference between holding a wish in your open hand and gripping it so tightly that your fingers ache. There's a difference between moving toward something and believing you cannot be at peace until you have it. One old teacher put it this way: have goals, but don't be had by them. The hardest version of this teaching is the one that asks, what about the difficult days? Because it's easy enough to feel that life is enough when the evening is calm and the stars are out and everything is quiet. But what about the mornings that arrive heavy? What about the seasons that bring real loss? There was a person who had spent most of their life worried. Not ordinary worry, but the deep kind, the kind that colors everything. They worried about their health, their family, things that might happen next month or next year. Every morning they woke with a knot of unease in their chest. Every evening they went to sleep with it still there. And then one day, something they had been afraid of for a long time actually happened. They received difficult news. And here's the surprising part. The worry stopped. Not because the news was good. It wasn't. But because the thing they had been bracing against for so long had finally arrived in the present. And the present, it turned out, was something you could actually stand on. It was real, solid. And they were still here, still breathing, still able to feel the warmth of a cup of tea between their hands, still able to hear birds outside the window, still able to taste something sweet. A friend came to visit, nervous, unsure what to say. They found the person sitting by the window watching the afternoon light move across the floor. Calm in a way that wasn't forced. Settled, the way a lake settles after the wind dies. "I think I'm more at peace now than I've been in years," the person said quietly. The friend didn't understand, but the person did. They had spent so many years running from a fear that the fear itself had taken more from them than the reality ever could. And now that the reality was here, there was nothing left to run from. There was only this room, this afternoon, this breath. Right now was all they had ever had. And right now, even this version of it was enough. There's one last image worth sitting with before the evening closes. Think of a traveler who had been walking for years. Not running from anything, just searching. Looking for the place that would finally feel like home. They visited misty villages and coastal towns and mountain monasteries, and each one seemed like it might be the right one. And each one eventually wasn't. One evening, on an ordinary road in an unremarkable landscape, the traveler simply stopped. Not because they had arrived anywhere, just because they were too tired to take another step. They sat down on a flat stone by the side of the road. The stone was warm from the afternoon sun. The grass around them was golden. A bird sang three simple notes over and over in no hurry at all. And the restlessness, which had been their constant companion for years, quietly went still. Not because it had been defeated, not because they had figured something out, but because for the first time in a very long time they weren't going anywhere. They were just here, on a stone, in the evening light, and here it turned out was enough. They thought about all the places they had been and realized something quietly astonishing. Every one of those places had been beautiful. Every one of them had been, in its own way, home. The problem was never the places. The problem was the leaving, the voice that kept saying not here, not yet, try the next one. That voice had been so loud and so convincing that it had drowned out a quieter voice that had been there the whole time, saying, "This is it. You're already home." They had been carrying home in their own chest for years and looking for it everywhere else. That evening they lay down beside the road and looked up at the stars coming out one by one, like candles being lit in a vast dark room. And they felt, for the first time in a long time, that they didn't want to be anywhere else. There's no technique here, no practice to remember in the morning. What we've been sitting with tonight is something softer than that. A small shift in how you hold your own life. A little loosening. A question you don't have to answer, just carry. Just to be alive is enough. Not because everything is fine. Not because the hard things aren't hard. But because this moment, however it looks, is real. And you are in it. Fully, completely in it. And that makes it whole. The stone was warm. The stars came out. The bird kept singing its three simple notes. And the traveler, for the first time, was completely, quietly, entirely there.